How's it going, everyone? And welcome to Chapter 5 of the Story of New World, a series in which I'll go through the entire main story quest in the game and summarize it for you so you can experience all of the lore without having to redo the leveling process. If you're new to the series, there'll be links to the first chapter at the top right of the video and in the video description below, so go back and start from the beginning so you can get caught up. Last time out, in Chapter 4, I thwarted the Lost's plot to blow up Pridewind, and upon returning to the town, I was given the great news that Lochner was holding up in a castle not far from my location. Although there was an immense amount of lost soldiers inside the castle, I managed to fight my way through and eventually came face to face with Lochner. After a tough battle, I managed to come out victorious and retrieve his corrupted staff. From there, I continued deeper into the castle till I found the lost Sir Gawain. He fought ferociously, but eventually I dispatched with him as well, and after searching his throne room, I managed to recover the crown of the region so a new ruler could be appointed. There was only one clear candidate for that position, and it was Knight Regent Jinjay, even though it went against the normal traditions of the region. After some convincing, we managed to get her to take up the position. I was rewarded for everything I did for Pridewind with a house of my own in the town, before being informed that Grace O'Malley went ahead to a nearby city called Oxborough to meet up with a shipbuilder, and that I should go meet up with her soon. Before I set off, I confided with Jinjay about the corrupted voice that had been visiting me in my head. She had heard of stories of such things happening to previous people, and although she knows of no cure for it, she does know of an old madman that seems to know more than most about the corruption. He fishes the East River, so my next move was to head up there and find him, to try put an end to these voices. The journey would be long though, so on the way, I planned to make a quick stop in the Everfall region, as I was informed by a fellow in the inn that there's a man up there that can teach me how to tame horses, and having a horse of my own would significantly speed up my journey. So I bid farewell to everyone in Pridewind, and started the long journey north to Everfall. Now, let's get into Chapter 5. But first, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel, it helps out massively. Chapter 5, the Soulwardens. I traveled north for what felt like an eternity, until I finally came across the man I was looking for, Joki Khan. Joki was a horse whisperer, and he believed that I had the warrior spirit within me that would allow me to be able to be taught how to tame horses, something very few people on Aeternum have ever been able to do. He sent me to a sacred cave nearby that was full of odd paintings that I was able to commune with. I learned from the cave paintings that if I offered a horse some of the Azos-infused oats that grew within the cave, and the horse accepted them, our souls would be bonded. So I proceeded to harvest these oats, before heading out to see if I could find a worthy steed to bond with. Just outside the cave, across the river, the moon shined down in a massive beam of light, and in its shadow stood a majestic-looking steed. As I approached it, it did not move, and as I reached out to offer it the oats I had harvested, it accepted my offer, bonding the two of us. Due to how I found him, I decided to call the horse Moonshadow. From here, I returned to Joki to thank him for his help, and get a few more tips on how to best look after Moonshadow. He taught me how to make this kind of horse food called victuals that I should feed to Moonshadow whenever he got hungry, that would help him stay strong and grow. And the stronger he would get, the faster he would be able to ride. From there, I set off with Moonshadow towards the eastern river in search of the madman Jinjay told me about. The journey was long, but a lot less arduous thanks to Moonshadow. As I was riding up and down the river, I finally came across a man that fit the description given to me. I approached him, but he wanted nothing to do with me, telling me to leave, as I would scare off the fish he was trying to catch. After wearing him down, I managed to get a name out of him, Jonas. I tried to get him to tell me what he knew about the corruption, but he was reluctant to talk of such things. When I confessed that I was hearing the voice of corruption, he sent me to a set of stones in the north that I should try to find and read. He spoke in riddles. It was hard to understand anything he was saying, but at least I had a lead to go on. So I headed off north in search of these stones. I had to climb a large stone structure, searching behind every set of vines, looking for these stone tablets I had to read. Finally, I managed to find the first one, which was a remembrance of a man called Soulwarden Romanus Agalon. I continued onwards till I found the second one, which was much like the first, but for a lady called Soulwarden Christina Krempel. As I continued on in search of the next stone, I ran into Jonas again, who was standing on the hill nearby. He continued to speak in riddles, as I tried to get him to tell me who these people, the Soulwardens, are. He seems to have forgotten much of his past, and cannot tell me who these people are, but he sends me towards the cave on the hill behind him, and tells me that there's something inside it that needs retrieving. So I push onwards, up the mountain, and into the cave. To my surprise, the cave was guarded by a massive grizzly bear, who fought ferociously, but was no match in the end for my fire staff. Once I dealt with the bear, I searched the cave, and found a set of old armor scraps. I returned with them to Jonas. He again left me with more questions and answers, but told me to press on further and find the final two stones, and that he would join me shortly. So I did just that. The first of the stones was a remembrance for Soulwarden Reyes Vacan, and the second was for Constanza Suberia. Now that I've read all the stones that I was told to read, I met back up with Jonas to try to decipher what this all means. He seemed to have regained some of his memories from this whole ordeal, and revealed to me that the Soulwardens have all been taken out by the corruption, and that everyone will eventually fall to the corruption. Me, sooner than later, if I cannot silence the voice within my head. Jonas believes that there might be a way to take a stand against the corruption, and to do so, I must seek out the strength of the Soulwardens. To do this, I must face a trial in the tomb of the old warriors. Hopefully, this will give me more answers, and maybe even show me a way to stop corruption for good. So I headed on forth towards the ancient Soulwarden temple, and began to fight my way inside. The temple was stunning, unlike anything I'd ever seen before, but it was full of guardians that would attack me on sight the moment I got near them. It was tough to fight my way through the temple, but along the way I found tons of old scriptures that allowed me to learn more about these Soulwardens. They sure knew how to keep their secrets safe, as each door was guarded by powerful creatures trying to stop me. I knew I was on the right path though, as the voice of corruption visited me once again as I made my way to the top of the temple, and she seemed mad at what I was doing. Eventually, I learned everything I could from this temple, and decided it was time to leave and regroup with Jonas. From what I could gather from the texts, the Soulwardens were people of outstanding ethics and honor, that devoted their lives to protecting the people of Aeternum from corruption. However, it seemed as though they may have failed in their goal, but maybe if I could find out what led to their demise, I could learn from their mistakes and put things right. As I was heading back to meet up with Jonas, I ran into my old friend Grace O'Malley on the road outside Oxborough. After catching her up on everything that conspired, I decided to head into Oxborough and ask around to see if anyone had seen Jonas about. The city was stunning, very modern looking, with a massive brick wall surrounding it to keep all of its citizens safe. The people of Oxborough also dressed very differently than those from Pridewind. It felt as if you were in a completely different era in time. I started asking around the Oxborough guard about Jonas, and one helpful soldier sent me in the direction of a lady called Sierra, who was said to know lots of things about the comings and goings of Oxborough. I met up with her in the city center, and she sent me to Atticus, the inn's butler, who in turn sent me to the guard captain, Dubois. I felt like I was being sent in circles, but finally, I got what I was looking for. Dubois informed me that Jonas lives in a cabin to the east, outside the walls of Oxborough, so I set off in search of this cabin. Eventually, I managed to find what I was looking for. It was a quaint little cabin, just on the river, perfect for any fisherman. When I confronted Jonas about why he didn't wait for me outside the temple, he seemed to have forgotten us meeting earlier. His mind seems to be a foggy mess, only remembering bits of information. He continued to speak in riddles, giving me little to no information to go on, but eventually he informed me of a tower nearby that may have some more answers for me about the Soulwardens. So I head off in search of this tower, known as Arcturus. It stood out in the middle of a lake, and like the previous Soulwarden temple, it was covered in undead creatures and traps. As I approached the tower, I was once again visited by the voice of corruption, only reassuring me I was onto something here. As I fought my way up the tower, I managed to gather logbooks that gave accounts of how the siege of Arcturus played out, the final stand of the Soulwardens. The Soulwardens fell back to the tower for one last stand, but were being swarmed by the corruption from all sides. They set up fortifications, but deep down they knew it wouldn't be enough. Eventually, the corrupted broke through their fortifications, forcing them to seal themselves in the upper floors of the tower. They rationed their food and supplies, but they couldn't last much longer. The final page of the logbook was missing, but maybe I could find it at the top of the tower, where the Wardens made their final stand. So I headed up there in search of it. As I made my way to the top of the tower, I was met by the tragic fate of the Soulwardens. Those Wardens who held up here still remained here, although in their spectral lost forms, their souls forever roaming the towers. I did manage to see the final page of the logbook though, but to get to it, I had to go through the fallen Soulwardens. With much sorrow, I put an end to each of the Soulwardens' spirits. I recovered the final page I was looking for. The final pages told of the leader of the Soulwardens' last stand. With an injured leg and no possibility of escaping, he had his fellow Wardens retreat to the south. From the north, the armies of corruption closed in, and only he could see both of them from upon the tower. He lit a massive fire to attract all the corrupted in, giving his Wardens as much time as possible to flee, using himself as bait. He was pleased to have the stars to keep him company in his final hours, and signed off the logbook with, I, Jonas Alazar, am honored to have served as the Soulwarden commander for all these... Wait, one of my Soulwardens is coming back. What is Michael doing? I ordered them all to run. That stubborn lunatic is going to get himself corrupted. I was shocked to the core by those last lines. The leader of the Soulwardens was none other than Jonas Alazar, the man I've been trying to get answers out of this whole time. This tower left me with more questions than answers. How was Jonas still alive? Are any more Soulwardens still out there? Were they able to find a way to stop corruption? I needed to return to Jonas and try to help him regain his memories so he could help me find answers to my questions. So I made my way back and told Jonas everything I learned from the tower, and informed him that he is the last of the Soulwardens, and that he was the commander of them. He faintly remembers of his past, but his mind remains foggy. He talks of his great shame and failure with the Soulwardens, and is saddened to be the last of his kind. To try and bring his spirits up, I suggest that I become a Soulwarden as well, to help revive the Order, but he thinks it's a terrible idea. because the process required to harden one's soul against corruption demands a sacrifice I cannot imagine. He wants to leave the Soulwardens in the past and stick to fishing, but I was determined to change his mind. As we talked further, he let slip that if I was to pursue such a notion as becoming a Soulwarden, I would need to forge a weapon capable of combating corruption. This would require a seat of power, but as of late, the Angry Earth is no longer generous with giving them out, so this would be a tough task, but one I was up for. He tells me of a not-so-friendly huntress from these parts that spoke on behalf of the Angry Earth. Maybe I could convince her to give me a living seed, but it would be very hard to convince her. I could ask about her in Oxborough, and maybe someone there would be able to get me in contact with her. So I headed off to Oxborough in search of this mysterious huntress. But that brings an end to Chapter 5. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're liking this series so far, please consider giving the video a like. It helps out massively. And also, why not subscribe to the channel with notifications on to be notified whenever the new episode is uploaded. But until next time, have a good one. Thanks for watching another video. If you'd like to watch the next chapter, Chapter 6, if it's available, click on the video to the left. Or, if you'd like to put your New World knowledge to a test in a New World themed game show, click on the video to the right.